What's the most satisfying act of revenge that you've ever experienced? Once, in first grade, I took off my shoe because I had a rock in it. For no reason other than this kid was a huge asterisk hole. The class jerk stole it and took off running. I chase after him and he eventually throws my shoe down a hill into a field of tall grass and just looks at me with a huge shit-eating grin. In a bad asterisk stone cold first grade timber I say, go find it and shove him down the hill into the grass after it. He starts crying and we run to the teacher. After explaining what happened, she made him go into the field and find my shoe. He crawled through the grass for about an hour before it finally turned up. Asterisk yeah. My friend's little boy had a similar situation. He had saved all his allowance and Christmas money to buy a skateboard so he could ride it to school instead of walking. Stops him right in front of the school and starts demanding he give it to him because little without dads aren't cool enough for skateboards. Her little boy flies off the handle and beats the bully with his board and they both get in trouble for fighting. My friend leaves work to pick up her kid and when he tells her what happened, she gets him a new board and takes him for ice cream. Side note, my friend's husband had left her a few months prior for the girl who ran the after-school program. It was actually against me. If that gives you any clue as to how justified and perfect it was. When I was 4 and my brother was 6, we were on our way to my great-grandfather's funeral. My parents stop at McDonald's and out of my brother's small fry bag, the 4.5 tall white bag of fries, he pulls an 11 fry. Impossible, right? We're in the back seat. I see it. He yells to my parents to witness this awesome fry, but before they can turn around I snatch it and eat it. He is upset. Whatever. Cut to 12 years later. Home after school. No parents. Friends hanging out in the kitchen. Everyone is scurrying around for an after-school snack. My brother and I are at the table and our friends are in the other part of the kitchen. Out of this bag of wavy Lays I pull a potato chip that is literally the size of my skull. No idea how this thing didn't break in transit. I'm like, oh my god. Guys, look at this chip. Before anyone can even turn their heads, my brother reaches across with his right hand and crushes the chip to crumbs. I have WTF eyes bearing down on him and he simply says, that's for the fry. 12 years had passed and we had never spoken about it, but it took less than a second to remember everything and just nod in agreement that the score was settled. One enormous potato product for another. True story. This is hilarious, especially because no one got hurt or anything. No one was a real asterisk in this situation. Reminds me though of when my little sister, maybe 3 at the time, bit the head off of my older sister's magic marker. My older sister thought she better test that it still worked by coloring in my younger sister's entire head, the whole area where hair would later be. When I was about 13/14, there was this kid on the school bus who was about a year older than me and used to pick on me a lot. He was a total arrogant shit star. One time he came and sat next to me and tried to pull the old, hey, did you know if your hand is bigger than your face you have cancer? Basically the idea is you get the person to then hold their hand right against their face, and then you hit their hand causing them to hit themselves in the face. I wasn't falling for it, so he puts his hand against his own face in order to try and show me what to do. What do I do? Turn his own prank against him and smack his hand into his face. His nose starts bleeding quite badly. God, that felt good. And then you said, so, did it work? At my school we had a douchebag who liked to stand next to his locker talking to one of his friends, and when someone got too close to it he'd slam it open into their face. As there were no cameras near this hallway, it was always dismissed as an accident. Anyways, one day he felt the need to open it into my best friend's face. Gave him a bloody nose and almost broke it. Now, as I'm sure you all would be, I was pissed off. So the day my friend got back, the douche felt the need to approach him to apologize about hitting my friend. Luckily, my locker was located between my friend and the other kid. When I saw I could do it, I casually unlocked my locker, waited for him to get close to it, and slammed it into him. Broke his nose and dented the locker. Revenge is sweet. For years and years in late elementary school and most of middle school, this one kid would just bully me constantly. Towards the end of 8th grade it had gotten pretty bad, and I really just wanted it to end. Let's call him Chris. When looking for a lost parrot on my property, I found the bottom half of some animal, may have been a muskrat, groundhog, or something similar, but I couldn't be sure exactly what, under a tree and brought it back to the house. I then called my mom, who was out of town traveling at the time, how I'd go about making it stop stinking. This was before I could really just Google it. She wouldn't really help me because I wouldn't tell her why I wanted to disinfect a dead rodent, but I let it sit out in the sun, this was late May, for a few days, and that killed most of the bugs and whatnot. I then wrapped it up in butcher paper, and put it in a paper bag. I then wrote, "Dear Chris, you forgot your lunch this morning. Love, Mom," on it. Chris always brought a bagged lunch into school every single day. In the morning after the first class period started, I went to his locker, no one locked theirs, and put it in his locker. After first period you could hear the screech from the floor below. Along with everyone else, I ran towards the sound and saw Chris walking down the hallway sobbing. I didn't do much to hide the fact that I did it, and was given a day of in-school suspension. The principal didn't find the humor in negotiating for a half day since it was only half a rodent. Chris never really messed with me after that. This one time, when I was about 15 to 16, I was about to walk inside my building, had just placed the keys in the lock, when, reflected in the door, I see two girls walking by behind me. I can actually hear one of them say, as she points at me, "Let's talk to this guy." But then her friend goes, "No, not him, he's ugly. Let's go." The girl that actually wanted to talk to me was cute and everything, man. So, not only did her friend * block me, so to speak, but she also called me ugly. And that hurt. I walk upstairs, walk into my place and then walk over to the balcony to see if I can spot the girls. They're right across the street, talking to each other, and the * blocker is being a bit loud and obnoxious. That did it for me. I walk back into the kitchen, grab a slice of ham and swoosh, threw it at the girl. Direct hit. She had a total WTF look on her face which made me smile. Of course, in retrospect, that was a stupid thing to do and I wouldn't do it again. TLDR, ham her time. Edit, my English are not good. I couldn't stand this one kid who I went to high school with, who lived a few blocks away in the neighborhood. One night, he sent cops to my parents' house where I was still living, telling them I had done something I didn't do. Luckily I had a receipt in my pocket from the restaurant I was at, in suburb 10 miles away that was time-stamped half an hour later than when he said the incident occurred. Regardless, my parents were woken up, etc. etc. I was pissed. Well, a few days later, my mom bought some plants that she left in the kitchen window. Our family cat was a nutball to begin with, but all of a sudden he was constantly jumping on the counters, eating these plants. When I'd try and shoo him down, he would actually take a defensive stance and hiss and scratch. 10 minutes later, he would be back, chewing on the leaves. I asked my mom what the plants were, and she said, "Oh, they are catnip. They have a really pretty flower. I'm going to plant them in the backyard when the weather warms up." I was like, "Not a chance you're planting these in our backyard. Look what you're doing to the cat. He's an aggressive stoner. You'll bring every cat in the neighborhood, and they will all fight, all night long." Suddenly, at that exact moment, a revenge plot was born. The following night, I snuck into his backyard and planted the catnip everywhere. My friend who lived across the street from him told me it worked perfectly, and that he was always complaining about cats fighting in his backyard after that. Revenge. No physical confrontation, no property damage, just stoned cats. Felt a little like some sort of supervillain, sending out my cat minions to do my dirty work. This kid picked on me since first grade. Then one day in 4th grade, the teacher had her back turned so he climbed under my table and started pulling faces at me, not sure why, he was kinda weird. It must have been a knee-jerk reaction but his face was there and my foot was here so I kicked him. In the face. Kid falls to ground shrieking while clutching his head. Teacher turns around and sees him out of his desk. Gives him detention. Later that day, his face had swollen to the size of a volleyball and he had stopped crying long enough to tell the teacher what had happened. My teacher asked me if it was true and I said I felt something tugging on my shoe so I kicked, thinking it was caught on something. The teacher gave me a lollipop, saying be aware of my surroundings next time. The kid never bothered me again. Best day ever.